Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, From World Music Crash Arts to Global Arts Live, how a presenter's efforts to draw younger audiences led to a new name and brand. My name is Robbie Otley, and I am the Senior Associate for Programs and Resources at the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. Before we get started, let's review a few technical items to ensure that everyone is properly set up to participate. We are welcoming some new colleagues to APAP in this webinar, so I would like to thank everyone for joining us again and take a moment to introduce our organization. The Association of Performing Arts Professionals is a national service and advocacy organization with nearly 1,600 organizational and individual members. Our members include artists, agents, managers, presenters, producers, and others from North America and beyond. We offer many professional development opportunities such as this webinar and programming at our annual conference to support today's and tomorrow's arts industry leaders. You can learn more by visiting us online at apap365.org. Our annual conference, APAP NYC, takes place in New York City every January and is the world's leading gathering of performing arts professionals. APAP NYC 2020 takes place January 10th through 14th, so mark your calendars now. We are testing a few new features of our webinar platform today, so thank you in advance for bearing with us. You will also have the opportunity today to ask questions and provide comments using the chat function. To ensure that the chat feature is visible, you may need to click the button in the Zoom window labeled chat. Within that chat, check that the Send To drop-down menu says everyone before you submit. That way we can all see your remarks. If there is comments that you have or any questions of sensitive nature, feel free to send to the moderator by selecting APAP in the Send To drop-down menu. So today you will hear stories and perspectives on the Global Arts Live experience. We'll have an opportunity for Q&A and comments at the end of the webinar, but feel free to use the chat box throughout the webinar, not just during the Q&A. We'll also be recording this webinar to post on our website within the next few days. And so let's kick things off. I will introduce Krista Bradley, the Director of Programs and Resources, who will co-host today's webinar. Krista.
Great, thanks Robbie, and welcome everyone. We are so thrilled to be able to do this webinar today, and I want everyone to be aware that APAP is very proud to be a Wallace Foundation communications partner for its Building Audiences for Sustainability initiative. And as a communications partner, we have the benefit of sharing resources, information, and learning from this funding initiative with APAP members for the benefit of the presenting, booking, and touring industry. Funded projects under the BAS initiative use research, programming, communication, and engagement strategies to build, expand, or diversify audiences. The Wallace Foundation recently issued a case study highlighting World Music Crash Arts experience, building new and younger audiences. This case study can be found at the link that you see on the screen, or on our APAP website, or on the Wallace Foundation website under resources. APAP is thrilled to be able to bring this published case study to life in today's webinar and to share the story of one of our colleagues in the presenting field. And we thank the Wallace Foundation for its support and work. So let's get started, shall we? So today we're focused on World Music Crash Arts and their story about building new and diverse audiences. I don't know how many people are familiar with the organization, but we have a video just to sort of frame a little bit for us, like who the organization is and what they do. So let's watch that video and then we'll move forward.
The incredible people of Boston are unbelievably adventurous in their cultural tastes and come out to support music and dance of all kinds, of all disciplines, and from all over the world. Global Arts Live presents inspiring performances that feature artists from over 70 different countries. These international artists transcend borders, they create community, We present jazz, dance, and global music. We do about 60 concerts a year and attract an audience of about 50,000 annually. We put the spotlight on artistic excellence from all corners of the globe.
Great video. And with us today is Susanweiler, the Associate Director of World Music CRASHarts. And I want to welcome her and get a little bit more information about the organization. Welcome, Susan.
Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here. That video was shown at the Boston Pops celebration on the 4th of July and was created by Bloomberg Foundation. We just wanted to share that.
Oh, great.
Reflects our new name, which is Global Arts Live.
Fabulous. Well, tell us a little bit more about how the organization got started and a little bit about the history of the organization.
Sure. So we were founded in 1990 by our founder and current executive director and artistic director, Maury Aronson. Maury had emigrated to the U.S. from South Africa and had found that he missed the music that he grew up with. There really wasn't that kind of offering in Boston. He was in the arts world working for a dance company, but really missed the music he grew up with. On kind of a whim, he built a small board and did a little fundraising and started out with a small 3-concert series of music from South Africa, the music that he knew. And it became clear immediately that that music resonated with the community. It did very well, and he started to expand in all different directions, bringing international music to the city. I joined the organization a few years later, and both of us have been with what was then World Music ever since. We presented a series under the name World Music for about 10 years, and then starting in 2001, started presenting more contemporary dance, some contemporary music, indie music, and some rock, and decided to put that kind of newer programming under the imprimatur CRASHarts. We felt like world music was too much of a genre, and it needed a different name, and called it CRASHarts. After a year of presenting those two separately, it was really clear our audience didn't really make that distinction. Our dance audience was going to the music audience was going to dance. So as a young nonprofit organization, we just threw our two logos together and the names together and became World Music CRASHarts. And we existed as World Music CRASHarts until just this May.
Wow, great. That's really wonderful. And just to give listeners a better sense of the size and scale of your work and organization, can you just walk us through some of the statistics that we see?
Yep, we do 50 to 60 concerts a year with artists from 20 different countries. We're in 15 venues across the city. Our budget ranges from about $2 and $2.5 million, and we do this with a very small staff of 8 full-time people.
So, wonderful. So look, moving forward then, let's get started about the challenge that you were facing here. And knowing that all of the Wallace Foundation's initiatives deal with building and sustaining and diversifying audiences, I'm curious to hear what the unique challenge was for World Music CRASHarts in terms of your own audiences. What were some of the issues you were trying to address with the Wallace funding opportunity?
Well, in 1990, when we were incorporated, our audience looked a lot like us. But as we grew older, so did our audience. You know, we felt like we woke up one day and all of a sudden our audience was middle-aged, as am I. So we really wanted to use our opportunity with Wallace to see how we could expand our younger audience and reinvigorate the organization through that younger audience. We also felt like as an organization without a home, we rent different venues throughout the city. We had an awareness problem. People really often came to the concert just because they knew the artist and didn't know our role in that. And that became really a problem when we started to fundraise more. If they didn't know our name and didn't know our involvement in the concert, it was really hard to ask people for money. And so we were hoping that maybe the idea of a festival would lower the barrier in knowing the artist and bringing many artists together and creating an atmosphere of discovery, and use that big event to bring awareness to our organization.
Mm-hmm. And who was the target audience you were trying to reach in terms of this whole idea of?
Well, originally Originally, it was a millennial audience, but as the research shows that we'll get into a little bit later, we expanded that to a diverse cohort of anyone between the ages of 21 and 40.
I see. Well, this is a common issue for so many of our presenters these days, as we are serving an older, mainly maybe a monolithic, a wider audience, less diverse, and looking to try to reach newer audiences. So this really resonates, I think, for so many people, as well as those that maybe don't have a venue. So I appreciate you sharing that information. Were there certain assumptions that you were looking at when you were thinking about reaching younger audiences?
Well, some of the assumptions were that the whole idea of international music, or world music as we called it, might not really resonate with that younger audience, and that a festival, if we put some indie artists and some other younger world music artists that were doing kind of more rock or rap or kind of contemporary viewpoints, might draw that audience in a new way. Or if we put the focus on discovery and bringing in food and the social aspect that might attract that audience, would help bring that audience to us. And then once we were able to bring them to an event, we could maybe bring them to our other shows.
Mm-hmm. And were you at all concerned about your existing audiences and in these efforts to try to attract a different demographic?
Absolutely. In no way did we want to alienate our bread and butter and the audience that had grown up with us and was really supportive. So we spent a lot of time trying to look into making sure that this one event didn't eclipse everything else we do. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Great. Well, let's talk through a little bit of the process. We know that you were trying to reach a younger demographic while not alienating your current audience. And we also know that one of the benchmarks of Wallace initiatives is really about research and not making assumptions. There's no need to make assumptions about your audience or communities when you have potential research tools like surveys and focus groups to maybe test some ideas out, test assumptions, and refine things. So I'm curious about how you used research to ground your efforts. Can you talk us through a little bit about that?
Sure. Wallace provided us with really a fantastic opportunity. We had never done a deep research project before. They assigned a research expert with us who helped us develop an RFP and develop our research protocol. We started with a survey, and that survey was, at first we thought we would just be testing the idea of this festival, but we dug much deeper into who is our current audience and who are the best prospects for us or global music and live dance in general. And then for us more specifically, what are the key drivers and barriers to attendance? Who are the best prospects for our festival? We tested ideas of the name, location, how long it would be, and then we tested ideas for how we would engage millennials going forward, whether we wanted an affinity group, what did that look like, would it be a membership program or activities. And so we started with this survey. That survey went out to 1,300 people. Half of them were from our database, and half of them were from a purchased database of people who are arts goers. So we got to be able to have a control group of people who knew us and people who had no idea who we were. And then we did focus groups. So with the information from those surveys in mind, we built our first set of focus groups. We had 3 sets of people, a mix of those who knew us, those who were from our database, and those who were not. Everyone was in our target audience, that age 21 to 40, and everyone had been to concerts before within the last year. And we tested our ideas of the festival, again, whether they were interested in global music, what it would take, what were their drivers and barriers, and then we had all of them design their own festival as homework and bring that in with us. And then we also tested our ideas of an affinity group and a younger membership. We showed them our marketing materials, and we built our festival around the feedback we got back. We had our first festival with exactly what they had really told us to do. Originally, our ideas for the festival were all over the place. We had one where it was in one location in different venues. One was one venue, one was outdoors in the winter as like more of a winter festival. They really helped us narrow down those ideas and pick a name. After the first festival, we returned to the focus groups. One set of the focus group were people who were actually participants in the original. We gave them tickets. They went to the festival and came back and gave us their feedback. Others were people who came to the festival and didn't have that background, but everyone had been to the festival. And we got feedback. And then we also tested again our whether they would be interested in coming back to our other concerts, what they thought of our different ideas to re-engagement and to what they'd like to see us do in the future. And then we had post-performance surveys for both the festival and our other events.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. What I'm struck by is that you're giving us examples of how research can not only inform a programmatic strategy and help, refine it and test assumptions, but also once you do try it, to be able to use research, whether it's open-ended, qualitative kind of questions with focus groups or closed survey questions to test whether you've done it right or what things you can tweak. So it's a little bit of an iterative process. Am I understanding that right?
Absolutely. And it was really interesting to us to see how the original survey really fed some of our questions that we wanted to flesh out deeper within the focus groups. Mm-hmm. Each Crash Fest got better and better every year. We used the research that we were given to refine it, as well as of our additional programming.
Mm-hmm. And what kinds of questions were you asking? Just curious.
Well, we were asking people what they were interested in, what kind of other genres they wanted, whether they were aware that we had presented the concerts, whether the important factors and decisions to attend. We asked them what was the most important reason for attending. Was it the type of music and dance, discovering something new, a particular artist that they knew, music, to hear music from countries that they'd heard or visited about, to socialize with friends, or that the music or artist represents their cultural heritage or that of their friends or partner, or if they were just particularly interested in an instrument. So we really were trying to get into what was driving them to come to the shows, and then we wanted to know what it was going to take to get them to come back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And were there any surprises? I mean, I'm curious about what you learned about this millennial audience, or maybe even your existing audience, that you didn't know and that you were surprised by.
There were surprises, honestly, at every level. When we started with the survey, we were really surprised how many people were actually interested in global music and dance. We thought of ourselves as very much of a niche market, and we felt like from that survey that people were really interested and found that it was really more people found it was a preferred art form than we would have ever guessed. But what we also found out is that they really didn't know us. Even those from our own database were not particularly familiar with who we are. Well, we found like we didn't have a product problem. People liked our product and felt like it was great if they came. They didn't really know us. They didn't know we were nonprofit. They didn't know we were local. We clearly had a brand problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to return to that brand issue because I know that was really another big component of this case study, that in the process of trying to build an audience and reach a new audience, you also discovered that you needed to maybe come up with a different identity that really embraced, your true core and struck a chord for people that would understand exactly what you do in a deeper and more succinct way.
That's very true. We also learned a lot about the millennial audience that was our target. We were told from the original survey not to focus primarily only on millennials, and that Xers were probably our biggest target. So we expanded our age group a little bit up into 40, which we felt that was really helpful. We were able to test whether the festival was going to be able to kind of meet our goals, and felt like it would. And then we really looked into what it was going to take to get our new audience to stay with us. It was very important for us that we weren't just building an audience for Crash Fest, that we wanted to build our whole organizational audience. So we needed to figure out ways to get them to come back to our existing audience, to expand our programming for other concerts that they would want to come to, and we created some engagement events to try to build that audience and create community.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about those engagement events now?
Sure, absolutely. So we started with a program we called CRASHarts, which was targeted directly to 21 to 40-year-old cohort. And we had a whole host of classes and parties and meetups for that specific cohort. And we even designed a special membership program for the 21 to 40 that included a free ticket, because the research had told us that really one of the motivators for that age group was going to be some kind of deep discount. An interesting process. It took a lot of time and resources, both in staff and in money. It is something that we can continue to talk about, but we did decide that we were surprised to find out that over time that cohort really didn't need a program just specifically for them, that all of our audience enjoyed those events, and that the feedback we got from the research is that the 21 to 40-year-old cohort didn't need something that was just for their own age group, that the multi-generational aspects of CRASHfest really appealed to everybody.
That's great. Well, now you're more than 4 years actually into doing CRASHfest. I wonder if it would be a good thing for us to see what CRASHfest really is. So let's pick up a video here and watch it, and then return to sort of hear what happened post all this research and the other initiatives you've done.
Great.
Para que entiendas que solo quiero un beso. Y en la mañana voy a robarte un beso. Y si es de noche lo robaré en tu sueño. Beso, beso, beso es lo que quiero. Beso, 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 beso es lo que quiero. Beso, beso, beso es lo que anhelo. Beso, 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 beso es lo que anhelo. Beso, beso, beso es lo que quiero. Beso, 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 beso es lo que quiero. Beso, beso, beso es lo que.
Okay, so I've already put the date on my calendar.
Good, that's great. Yes, this will be our fifth CRASHfest. And I'm not sure how much you can tell here, but I just wanted to describe CRASHfest a little bit. So what we ended up doing is having the event at the House of Blues, a place that's really popular with the demographic that we wanted to present. But we completely transformed the space. We set up 3 different stages in different rooms throughout the building. We have over 10 bands, global food trucks throughout the venue. We have some social action tables where people can take a stand with immigrants. They write letters to ask for citizenship reform, pathways to citizenship reform. And it's just a really fun event. We went from a pretty small audience in the first year to last year being the first time we sold out. We are finding that a significant number of people are buying tickets before even the lineup is announced. So the festival and the idea of discovery is really being much more important than actually the individual artists, something that we really felt was important to bringing down some of those barriers of not knowing who the artists are, something that we feel really excited about. And so, yeah, we're gearing up for our 5th one in February.
That's fantastic. That's great. How did CRASHfest help you address some of the audience challenges you described earlier?
Sure. So we worked really hard on the marketing to really attract our target demographic. And it gave us a chance to talk more about our mission and who we are and put ourselves at the forefront. But one of the drawbacks we found after that first set of focus groups is that our logo and our marketing materials really weren't resonating with our target demographic. So we branded the festival itself a lot more. We're looking forward to this year when we can finally release our new brand at the festival. One thing that I didn't tell you other than the festival selling out is last year we were really close to being sustainable, to breaking even, and that is a goal for us this year, that this is the first year we'll be presenting the festival without the Wallace funding, and I have a feeling it will be okay.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We've used the festival over the years to also publicize our other offerings and to make sure that people know about our other concerts. We have a whole host of specially programmed concerts for the target demographic that we promote at the festival. We present 15 to 20 artists throughout the city, mostly in clubs, that we have chosen specifically for the 21 to 40 demographic. And we've done that through a couple different ways. The venue is very important, but we've also used artists that we feel like that demographic know, or artists that represent them in their life experiences, artists that link them to something larger, something that they care about, that have a social justice kind of message to put across. And we're seeing really great retention rates. We're finding that those who come new to the festival for the first time are much likely to return to our other concerts than if they had come to an original concert. We're seeing much higher return rates.
Yeah, I wanted to just underscore what I think is really interesting, that obviously the Crash Fest was a gateway, I guess, of getting people in the door with a group that you wanted to reach, but you were thinking beyond that one event and trying to think about how can you engage this audience in a repeat way and over time. So these other engagement events are really interesting. Is there anything else that you think would be helpful for us to know about those and how you really conceived of those and how you spaced them? Or I just think it's a really important piece of the story.
I think the partnerships with our local clubs to be able to present in those settings are really important to us. They're locations where our target demographic are really excited about, and the artists that we've chosen to put in to present in this way are all doing really interesting things. It's not a folkloric approach to culture. They're presenting they're rooted in the countries where they come from, but presenting a really contemporary global viewpoint. And they've done really well. They're also drawing a multi-generational audience. It is not just 21 to 40. And we've seen a real systemic change in our overall audience. When we started this project, 25% of our audience was under 40. And 4 years later, we're finding that 35% are under 40. So we've made a big increase in just 4 years.
That's great. And those statistics apply to all of the events that you're doing, not just Crash Fest?
Yes, that's across the board.
That's fabulous.
Crash Fest is like 50% under 40. It's a much different atmosphere. And it really draws in a larger percentage of new audience members than our existing audiences.
Fabulous. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the impact pieces. You've given us some of that, just how the demographics have shifted and how the younger audiences are making up more of your demographics. Are there any other things that you've noticed about the way that you work or the way that you're approaching your own work that's evolved?
Well, from some of the research, we've really changed our marketing, but I think everybody has done that across the board. Most of our marketing is digital. We're really video forward at this point, as you can tell from this webinar. And we just had our first awareness campaign across the city. So we're learning to talk about our organization more. In the past, we really just sold the artists and drew an audience for a particular artist. And now we're really trying to sell the organization as a whole and showing people that this organization is for you, not just this concert is for you.
That's fantastic. So now where are you? So we're like 5 years out, and are there other pieces of information that we should know about the impact of the overall journey that you've made, and how did this all impact your work and your brand?
Well, most importantly, as the research showed, we had a branding problem, a really severe one, that our existing audience couldn't get our name right. Those who didn't know us, there was a real low overall awareness, and we certainly wanted a strong regional awareness. There was a lot of brand name confusion, and we were hoping to get some kind of clarity there, that we presented ourselves as an organization for an older audience, and we wanted to appeal definitely to a larger demographic. While we presented in different venues all across the city, that was considered that we were kind of homeless, and we wanted to put a better spin on that, and that the multiple venues actually provided us a advantage to reach more people in different areas of the city. We wanted to show that we had a strong, intentional, diverse programming, and that instead of being world music, which I think was a kind of a tired term from the 90s, to really have a name that grasps our contemporary, current artistic viewpoint.
That's a really interesting and very clear kind of journey that you're trying to actually make, right, with your brand. So given the things that you wanted to shift and change, where are you now with your brand?
Well, we have a new name and a whole new look, if you want to show that.
Let's see that transformation. That's a great campaign.
Thank you. I'm not sure how well people could see it, but the tagline is performance that shapes our world, and it's a dynamic tagline that is performance that moves our world, shapes our world, connects our world, rocks our world, a lot of different uses there, which we're really excited about. And as you can see in the current slide that's up, that was our old brochure that we showed the focus groups back a few years ago. And one of the people in the focus groups took one look at it and goes, "Oh, I think my dad would like that. It looks very NPR, PBS." And so we're really excited about our new look. Not that there's anything wrong with NPR or PBS, but we think we really are presenting ourselves as a cleaner, more contemporary viewpoint, and that's the kind of art form we're actually presenting, so it really is serving us well.
That's great. And so talk to us about the brand Rollout, because I know that was that's been recent.
Of course. So we struggled and came up with a new name and all of our brand assets about a year ago, and it took a year of planning on the best way to kind of roll this out and the best timing, and spent a lot of time working with a PR company and some getting some professional help on how best to roll out our brand. So this May, we used the video that everybody just saw and told our existing stakeholders and our existing audience that we were changing our name. We rolled it out in the end of May, and then this brochure came out to people right afterwards in early June. And then we waited until the concert season really started in September and started a full awareness campaign that was to reach a new audience, not necessarily the audience who knew us as World Music Crash Arts, but that audience is interested in international music and dance, but that doesn't know us and never knew us as the tired old look and the weird two logos thrown together, but as this clean, crisp, new contemporary look. And for that, we had a radio, print, and out-of-home campaign that's just finished up. It ran through almost all of September, and we had our first mobile video campaign on the T that ran, and that's our public transportation here in Boston. They have video boards and different stations. We had some billboards and wrapped a few buses. It's really seemed to serve us well. While we had a great concert season in September, I can't say all of it's due to the new branding. We've seen our web traffic is way up. Our sales this fall are up 125%, and our individual contributions are up 27%. So we're really excited.
That's great. That is great. As you were talking, I just want to go a little deeper with some of the branding pieces. How
Sure.
challenging or difficult was that to come up with a new name?
Impossible. And and we really struggled. We did some additional research. We did some surveying, and none of it really led us to a name that we were like, that's it. That's our name. And some of our board wanted CRASHarts to stay our name. Some really liked the Global Arts Live. And that's why we were really excited with the dynamic tagline that they came up with for us, the performance that shapes our world. We felt like if we had a name like Global Arts Live that was very descriptive of who we are, we wanted a much more evocative tagline. And we really feel like we got that. And it has been transformative to work with a style guide. Every year we did something a little bit different and didn't have those guideposts to kind of follow with us. We spent a lot of time with new messaging all across the board, and really feel like those tools are leading us in a much clearer way. Our board is really feels empowered to do a better fundraising with it, and our staff is really excited.
That's great. For people that don't know, what is a style guide?
A style guide is a whole book of colors you should use, the language you should use, fonts that you should use, and it's a whole brand guidebook. And that in hand, it's been much easier to produce videos and ads and talk about our organization. Campaigns seem to come much more easily. We had a change in a graphic designer, and we could just hand over a book and say, this is where you need to follow. I don't think he feels constrained. I think he feels like he knows what he's supposed to be doing, which is cool.
That's great. There's a consistency to the way that your organization is always perceived and presented. It sounds like that's a style guide.
And we've invested also in transforming the venues in which we present. Like I said, we have 15 different venues across the city, and we're working much harder to make sure that people who come to the shows know that we are part of it. So we have a lot of branding at the venues as well.
That's great. We've had a couple of comments as we've talked. One was an interesting question at the very top of conversation, was about the branding, and the question was, do you brand the festival each year? Do you rebrand the festival each year? I'm wondering how you'd respond to that.
We have not rebranded the festival every year, and this will be our first festival with our new name, which will be a challenge for us. We are, currently trying to decide how much the Crash Fest had its own logo, this really cool mandala that we use for Crash Fest, and whether we continue to use that or just use our own logo, which will be interesting. But we branded the Crash Fest in its own way. We tried new things every year as we found that our audience was really interested in feeling like they had the social justice aspect and impact of the festival was really important to our target audience. We came up with a tagline, "Music Knows No Borders," and we put that all throughout the festival. I know that we'll continue with that, and we use that throughout our organization now. But we don't change the brand every year for the festival. We certainly change the artists, but they're all within that same idea. One thing I wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to that I thought was really interesting is originally we really thought we needed an indie artist to attract our target demographic to the festival. And here we've had less and less of that, and in the last 2 years we've had only global artists, and it has sold better and better.
Wow.
And it's a lot more cohesive, which is great.
Sure. That's great. There is another comment from Mike Green from Napama, who lives in Ann Arbor and was referring to the ARC, and just was making the connection between some of their programmatic strategies and yours, in that using, they have a winter festival, I understand, and they have both established artists, well-known artists, new artists that might be unfamiliar to folks. And it gives people an opportunity to both have some people that they're discovering and people that they know. But the festival also then programs the newer, lesser known artists throughout the year. It's a slightly different take, but the program strategy of having some discovery and then helping people to gain an audience later seems to be a programmatic strategy that's working for a couple of people. And just want to thank you, Mike, for pointing that out. I think it's important for presenters to hear that too. I wonder if you have any comments about that, Susan.
Well, we've always found that artists were a driving force of why people came to our concerts. It was that particular artist. And that's one of the reasons why a festival format works so great and focusing on the idea of discovery. This will be the first year that we feel like we really don't have a headliner of any kind for the festival, and I'll have to report back on how it sells. But so far, we've sold 260 tickets without any lineup. So I feel like the festival itself is becoming an entity, which is exciting.
What's the capacity of the festival?
2,000.
Okay. All right. You're 10% there. That's great.
Yeah. without a name on the board, which is
That's
great.
wonderful, which also is a testament to people trusting you and having, they're okay with actually going and knowing that they're going to have a great time.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We really thought we were going to build an audience for the festival. The first year, people said that they were going to come back for sure the next year, and they didn't. And after 4 years, only 13% of our audience has been to more than one festival. And we're shocked. We didn't think that would be the case at all. We were really shocked by that. But what we are finding is that those who come to the festival, and that's their first experience with us, they're much more likely to return to our other concerts than anything else. And that's really interesting to us.
Yeah, it also speaks to some sustainability issues. That's great that you've created this way for people to discover and find you, and then they find that they want to come back to your other programs. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are any other lessons that you want to tease out, or are there any other things that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you wanted to?
I'd love to talk about our decision to end our CRASHarts program. So we built this affinity group. We first thought we would have a young professionals group, and the focus groups immediately jumped all over us. Why do they have to be professional? And that sounds like something for work. I don't want to do that. So we tried building something that was very social and just for the specific age demographic. And we had some success. Over the 4 years, we had about 500 people participate. But the capacity within our small staff and without the funding, we really felt like our entire audience was enjoying those events. They often didn't sell well, and we had to open them up to a more general audience, and everyone seemed to enjoy them. So we have decided to kind of move away from these affinity groups and look at how we can build community at our concerts. And I think that that's a big trend that Wallace is seeing across our cohort. So I wanted to make sure we had a little time to talk about that.
Well, yeah, I think it's great that there's experimentation and that you can try out things, but you don't have to do everything, and not everything's going to work.
Right.
I also think you raise a good point about just sustainability. You had a infusion of support to discover and make new things happen for your organization. I'm wondering, how are you continuing to do some of these things without Wallace support, and how are you finding to make making that transition?
It's not easy, to be honest. We are cutting back on a few things with CRASHfest, some of the engagement activities and some of the additional support staff that we had for it. We will be all bringing in-house. We really, last year we were $10,000 shy of breaking even for CRASHfest. This year we really hope to have it be a break even. The re-engagement concerts that I was talking about, that we specially programmed to get those audience members to the target demographic to return, are actually revenue producing at this point, which is great.
That's great.
And not by a huge amount, but at least they're not, they're not a negative. And so we hope to continue. We will continue doing some of the research. We have a narrower scope of a survey that goes out after every concert, so we can continue to get some demographics and some feedback from our audience. We will continue with some of those research pieces, and we're continuing, obviously, to analyze our data to see our return rates and our audience demographics. But we'll be missing the Wallace Foundation in the years to come.
Yeah,
they have really, for a small organization of our size, working with them has really created some transformable change.
Oh, that's fantastic. It just shows how much some infusion and focused energy and resources can really make a huge difference for a small and mid-sized organization such as yours. So that's really awesome. I wonder if we can just open it up for questions now to those on the call. This would be a time for you can just put in your chat box. Any questions that have bubbled up for you, or things that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, we invite you to do that. And while we're waiting for people to maybe add something, I have a few in my back pocket that I'd like to just throw out there for you, Susan. One of the things that I know we've heard from our presenter colleagues is, how do you balance the focus on bringing in younger audiences without alienating older audiences? And I just wonder if you have some insight into that, or some ways that you would strategies you would share, or things that you've learned in the process.
Sure. Well, there was no departure in our programming. Our programming remained the same throughout. We didn't scale back from our existing presentations, but we added more. We sometimes get some feedback that people aren't thrilled with the venues because they're standing room only and don't appeal to our older audience. But we have 60 concerts a year, so there's plenty of other concerts for them to choose from in different venues. I've found that both our older audience and our younger audience really appreciate the multi-generational approach. Often one of the key comments we get on our post-performance surveys of how cool it was to be in a room with people from different backgrounds and ages all coming together, and it really creates that celebratory feeling that we love at our concerts.
That's great. Massimo has a really interesting question about just venue challenges that you might have. So he asks, and I think, do you have a venue problem? Too few venues of appropriate size for the audience, or that are unfamiliar to them? What would you say about that?
You know, it's a double-edged sword. Do we have a venue problem, or do we have a venue opportunity?
There you go.
Because we're in 14 venues across the city, and we're always looking for more, we have the opportunity to put the artist in the venue that we feel like is correct for them. We have, no matter what we do, if we put an artist in a seated venue, we have people who say, well, but I wanted to dance. If we put them in a standing room only venue, we have audience members who reply, there was no seating and it was too hard for me to stand that long. So it's a constant problem, but it's also a constant opportunity, because we're not stuck with one specific venue or one specific size. We use everything from our Symphony Hall, which is 2,600, or the Orpheum Theater, which is also in that range, or the Opera House, which is about 2,500, all the way down to our smallest venues, which is a 200-seat little teeny black box called the Rockwell, to nightclubs around the city that range from 300 to 2,500 people. So we can really gauge not only what we think the artist will sell, but the right setting for them, whether that's dance, jazz, or global music.
Yeah, it sounds like a great opportunity because you have you're not limited to a fixed
right.
size.
Right. I mean, there are drawbacks in that, we need to, if there are problems in the venue, we don't have that control. People are unhappy with the seats, we can't repair them.
Sure.
There's some of those logistical issues that we lose a level of control.
And Massimo also had just a follow-up question, just talking about, no, it's okay. Susan's getting over a cold too, so I know that, thank you for being a trooper with us.
Oh, no, not.
But you mentioned the problem of being itinerant and the fact that you always have to move around, and how this might affect awareness of the organization. So I think it would be helpful to hear how specifically you brand the organization across venues. What are some of the strategies and tools that you use? Sure.
Well, a couple things that are really important to us. One is we send out an email to everybody before the concert, and we try to get the names of people who bought at the venues, to send them that email as well, just about what time it starts, where to park, something that I think most arts organizations do. But we reach out to those who bought through the venue as well, and try to have one pre-performance email go out with all of those logistics. So that's our first touch point that kind of introduces them to us. After every show, there's a thank you for coming with a survey that also has our branding on it. But then at the venue, depending on what we're allowed to do, we have a gobo that goes up on the stage. We have a lot of brand banners that go up in the lobby. We've invested in some swag to give away at the concerts, as well as we have these really cool of our logo that are clings that go onto the windows that we can try to take some real estate to show that we are the presenter. So we've invested in as much as we can to rebrand the venues and make them our own.
That's great. Yeah, that's helpful for particularly for people that maybe are don't have their own venue, or we're finding there are a number of presenters that are kind of pop-up presenters, and independent producers that want to actually do things across a region. So those are some really good suggestions for ways that they can brand their programming across venues. So thanks for that. I have a question about just research in general, and just wondering, what are your suggestions for using research to help with audience building and program strategy for people that might not have all the resources that you did, but and not to put you on the spot here, but are there some things that you found that once you have the tools, it's a fairly easy way to sort of apply some of the things that you've learned, or what would be some of your suggested tactics?
Sure. Well, we felt really lucky to have Wallace's advice in moving forward, and I would just urge people to use an iterative approach, to try one band of research and learn from that, recreate it for the next time with things like SurveyMonkey, or even informal focus groups where you're just hearing back from people what they think about who you are and what you do, and what you can do better in the future. The more information you have there, the better off you'll be. We were really surprised in the beginning for Crash Fest that one of great examples, we thought we'd have a VIP ticket and be able to do some fundraising around that. And it was really interesting to us to hear our focus groups say, but that sounds completely off your mission. Everything you're talking about is bringing people together. You don't want to separate people out by VIPs and non-VIPs. Wow. And we scrapped that idea really quickly. So I think just being able to have those avenues open to hear from your audience is imperative.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I know that if people go to the Wallace Foundation's website, to the Knowledge Center, there are a number of resources there that were created around the Building Audiences for Sustainability initiative that includes case studies, as well as tools on how you can actually use research on your own, and easy ways to sort of craft surveys that you can use, so that maybe if you don't have a grant or an outside expert research person, there's some great resources to help you sort of take what's been learned and done and be able to apply it to your own organization. And then I would also just ask if you have any recommendations as first steps for organizations as they consider their brand. Are there things that you've learned about the importance of brand identity, or how to address brand issues?
Well, I think branding is imperative. If people don't know who you are and they can't remember your name, they're never going to donate. And so a brand process is a long and expensive process. There's just no way around it. But I really feel like after our experience, not doing it is a long and expensive process. I feel like we're really playing catch up because we should have done it years ago. We are very fortunate that the Wallace helped us, and a few other avenues helped us afford to be able to go through that brand process, but it all the difference.
Yeah, no, that's great. Cynthia on the call has an interesting related question. I'm just going to read it. That my company name is World Music Promotions, and it's been around for 16 years. Many presenters all over the world come to me to find Caribbean artists. We know that the world music name now is becoming less popular, and she finds it really difficult to change the company's name at this point. So the question is, did you change the name overnight, or did you make a transition by using both names until you changed it completely?
So that is a great question, because we really struggled with what was the best way to roll this out, and talked to a lot of different people and really didn't know the answer. But we pulled that Band-Aid off. Once we were ready to announce it, as you can see in that video, we decided we would just do it at once. We thought that having two names already in our old name and then doing both names at the same time would just be really confusing. We did feel like through the research that the term world music was dated, and it didn't capture the contemporary viewpoint that artists are using today. It felt even a little colonial. honestly. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get rid of it. Some of our audience, I think, really misses it and feels like it talked about who we are. But it really brings back those old Putumayo CDs that people used to have, and it frames you in an older time frame, I'm afraid. So when we were ready to announce our new brand, we sent out letters to all of our stakeholders. We made phone calls. We sent a postcard to our entire database, and then announced with our new brochure. And the first page, the inside page of our brochure was World Music Crash Arts is now Global Arts Live. And you know, if you look at our website, we talk about why we changed our name. And I think once you have that new name, you go for it.
Those are all really good lessons. So ripping the Band-Aid off is not a bad thing. And finding ways to explain why you're making a change, and having lots of different outlets to relay that change. And then it sounds like also having some follow-up, you know, that helps you sort of reiterate that change to your constituency. Those were all helpful things to helping people come along.
Absolutely. You know, our biggest fear is that people thought that we went out of business. Had to do a lot on digital, making sure that our SEO was going to be okay, that people could find us. We still have both URLs available. If you go to worldmusic.org, which was our old website, it goes right to Global Arts Live. You know, there are a few touch points there that we were really concerned about, and spent a lot with our digital partners. We partner with Capacity Interactive, who really helped lead the way in how to make sure we didn't lose our SEO, and with our new name and the name change. It's a scary process, but we're really excited and feel like it's paying off already.
Well, that's great. And APAP knows a little bit about name changes, and I think we feel really good about our name change too. So I think there's some good simpatico lessons that you've underscored in this presentation that we certainly learned in our name change. So we're just about out of time. I don't think that we have any other questions. So I think we can close out maybe a little bit early. I do want to thank everyone for being on this webinar, and Susan, this has been such a joy to have you walk us through the journey, and congratulations so much on all that you all have accomplished over the years, and certainly over the last few years with Wallace support. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Well, thank you. And if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is susan@globalartslive.org, and I'm happy to continue the conversation if somebody didn't feel like they wanted to bring it up here.
Oh, thank you so much. That's great. We also wanted to just share with you that there is a study guide from the Wallace Foundation and APAP that we work together on for the World Music Crash Arts case study. It will be coming out soon. It is a guide to help you maybe apply some of the case study lessons to your own organization, and has a number of prompts and suggestions for ways that you might be able to pull your own team together and consider issues around programmatic strategy, how you're reaching younger audiences, or whether your brand actually is really capturing all you are. So we look forward to sharing that with you when it's live. And we want to thank you for being here. The conversation does continue for this webinar at APAP NYC 2020. We will have a survey available that will be going out to you shortly. And then the recording, as Robbie said at the top of our webinar, will be available in a couple of days. So thanks so much for being on the webinar, and we look forward to seeing you next time.